Unahaganisinga, Zanabechu, Nabimiya Dachinam. Welcome back, everyone, to Rising Warriors, Rachel Coulee. My name is Nabi Mia Dachinap, which is Woman That Travels with the Stars. I am affiliated with the Shoshone. I'm a descendant of Chief Washki and Chief Pocatello on my mother's side, and then a descendant of Chief Joseph and Chief Raven of Morat on my father's side. And today we have Bill Gowey here with us. And I asked him to come and be on today. He went and did a ceremonial prayer journey this summer. And I'm going to let him tell a story about what he's been doing. But this summer, he went to my Shoshone family in the land and went through and traveled and went and blessed the land there for um, drug and alcohol addictions and, those abuses and things like that. And so I asked him to come on today and to share a little bit of his journey and his story about what he experienced as he traveled through the Shoshone lands this summer as he went on his prayer journey. So I'm going to have Bill go ahead and introduce yourself and introduce your people and a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Bill Gowey. I'm a pastor. I'm also a northern traditional dancer and eagle whistle carrier for people from Cheyenne River and Dakota people from Sisseton. And I went through ceremonies for that. And my dad was Yaqui Refugio Moreno. I never met him. It's a long story how I ended up going through the adoption with the LaPointes and LaPlantes and Cloud family. But I had a nephew, Seth Cloud Chief Eagle, die of huffing CO2 back in 2008. And his mom called me and said, call our friends and tell them. And she just said that her son had died. And so as the uncle, even though it was just adopted, to her it wasn't just adopted, but so I did that job of calling our friends and telling them about Seth passing away, and his death from that huffing that CO2 led me to a time of prayer about what did God have for me next in my in our ministry and in my life. And one of the things that came to me was to go to all 22 tribes of Arizona and offer traditional gifts and ask permission to be there to pray about drug abuse, alcoholism, and suicide, and to share my story of overcoming drugs and alcohol, but also how I grew up, the family I grew up in, and all that. And that's what led me to this year. I've been doing this since 2011 on a motorcycle. And this year I felt led to go to all the Shoshone communities. Are we still connected?
Yep, you're here.
Okay. All right. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Okay. You're good.
So, okay. So I've been doing this prayer journey actually since 2009. I started, and I did go to all the tribes in Arizona. And then at the end of that time, I met two Paiute ladies from Walker River Paiute Res, and they were the great granddaughters of Wavoka, the man that started, Jack Wilson, that started the ghost dance. And God led me to gift the oldest sister, not knowing who she was. And I was at a senior center there on the res, and asked if I could share my story, and the director said, yeah, go ahead. And when I got done, those two ladies came up and gave me $20 bill and said I needed to go not just to Arizona and wherever but to go to all the Indian communities and reservations across the country. And so I've been working at that since that time. And I've been all over the West and the Midwest, and I've been to over 300 tribes so far. And the reception has been unbelievable, even to being taken into ongoing tribal council meetings. You know, just showing up, not announcing myself ahead of time or anything, but just going as I feel led.
It's beautiful.
And so this year, doing the Shoshone thing, I got a hold of you and your mom and your sister, because I know that's where you guys are from. And I run it by people, what I feel like I'm supposed to do, what I feel that the Holy Spirit's telling me, but I want to run it by people from the land. And then when I go this year, I couldn't make contact like normal. So I actually was getting permission and contact, you know, over the phone and emails and things prior to doing the ride.
Yeah, I was very touched when you reached out to Mom and Jacqueline and I and asked about different locations that you felt that we should have you go and travel through. It was beautiful because I just kept hearing, and I would pray and I'd look down at the map and I would go, okay, here, tell him this location. Okay, go to Wyoming, go to Yellowstone. Oh, okay, he needs to go down to Elko. And then I'd hear my grandma, Elko, he needs to go to Elko. And I always hear stories, you know, growing up of, you know, her traveling to Elko, Nevada, and the family down there. And so I was very, you know, honored when you asked us, you know, where we felt that and inspired for you to go and travel through this summer. And I just wanted to say that it's been interesting since you went to the reservations and went and prayed, because I've been actually witnessing and watching family members of mine quit drinking. And so it's interesting that those prayers that you did, you know, I'm witnessing and I'm seeing it working. And you know, I'm watching family members trying to sober up and, you know, clean up their lives, and it's been beautiful to watch.
Yeah. Over the years, it's been amazing for those kind of stories. And one reservation that I went to early on, I was led to a guy. I actually went to 3 different Apache reservations, but it started off at a real local one here. And on my way home, I felt like God said, Monday morning, go to White River. And I I'd only been there one time, and it was actually one of the 2 places that I felt fear spiritually going. But when he told me to go, it was like there was no fear, there was nothing. And it was 4:30 in the afternoon on that Friday, and a lot of things had happened. But I didn't even have the money to go Monday, but some people sponsored me, so I went Monday, didn't know where I was going, and I ended up being led to a traditional leader, work for the tribe, kind of a traditional but Christian guy. And then right as the lady was taking me in to meet him, she said, I want you to know that 4:30 in the afternoon on Friday, his niece had jumped off the bridge and killed herself. And so I was like kind of in shock, you know. But at the same time, really knowing that God had sent me there for that time. And I, you know, got to talk with him. It's kind of hard talking about death with certain people, certain tribes that you're not supposed to do that. But after some time, and I went and had really good prayers that day, and a lot of really interesting things happened. And then I heard from somebody else later that for the rest of that summer, that the suicide rate had went down, and it goes up and
Oh.
down on different places. But and I talked to one Apache elder that every time I go somewhere, I run it by him. And then, and I told him, I said, I don't believe God would send me on these journeys if he wasn't going to answer my prayers and
Yeah.
our prayers, because there's a lot of people that join me as I go along. And he just looked at me and said, Amen. That God was behind it. It wasn't just something, because I want to make sure it's not just my own thought, because we all have things pop in our head. And that's why I talked to your mom and to you guys, because I don't want to get out there on my own or just doing something on my own.
Yeah. So you want to share anything that comes to mind of messages of experience from your journey on the Shoshone land?
Yeah. Everywhere that you guys told me to go, something significant happened. The first was actually when I got up to the res at Wind River. I was in town that night, and I stayed in a hotel. And the funny part was the address for the hotel was 2020. Big letters right on the front door, and I was like, do I want to stay here or not? But so I went to just a local restaurant, and things are different everywhere you go during this COVID. And in there, you had a few people wearing masks, a lot of people not, kind of a cowboy steakhouse type of thing. And everybody was, just kind of doing their own thing. And my waitress was native, and a young girl, real beautiful smile. And I got to talking to her, and she asked me what I was doing, and I told her. And when I asked her if she was a Shoshone or Arapaho, she explained that she was Crow. And then she said, I moved over here because it was safer than living at Crow. And then it reminded me of things I know about Wind River. I'm not from there, but you hear things. And as I studied before I went, it's kind of known for not being a safe place. And as I talked to her, I said, oh, you're here because it's safer? And she said, yeah. And I said, but this is kind of a rough res. And she said, I don't ever go to the res, and I will never go back because of what had happened to her as a young girl. But she was in her early mid-20s, and she was in recovery. And when I gifted her, I took some same things that I give you and your mom and your sister. I had taken tobacco and different things, and I said, God told me to give you this. And she came back later, just broke down, and she said, thank you. That's when she told me she was in recovery, was when she came back. And she said that what I was doing really encouraged her. And then later that day, I met a young lady with her son, teenage son, and we're in a coffee shop downtown there, right on the res border, and felt like to share my story and to gift her. And when I did, she told her son, take off your headphones. He was doing school. And then she said, tell him your story. And when I told about growing up under the alcoholism and all the things that went on in my family and how that's been broken off my family, her and her son just smiled and looked at me, and it was, you could see that they had a hope, And then earlier that morning is when I had all the eagles, the golden eagles around me, right at the res line on the northern part on the highway there. I went to Shoshone, which is just off the res, and I know it's the crossroads and part of the Sand Creek Massacre Trail. And so I went up there to pray, and when I came back, I seen a golden eagle circling the res border sign. And so I stopped and I prayed, and I put tobacco down, and the bird would get real close to me and then kind of circle and then kind of disappear. And I was watching for it, and then another full mature golden eagle came out of the rocks and just flew right in front of me. And so to me, it was real special. It meant that I was doing what I was supposed to, that I did hear from God. And He's given me signals like that, signs, all along the way. And then I ended up that first day on Wind River. I was headed for Idaho Falls, and ended up in one of the worst storms I'd ever been in on my motorcycle. It was all I could do to stay on the highway. There was a crosswind and a rainstorm that just blew in out of nowhere, and it was taking me from one side of the road and almost throwing me in the ditch. And then right when I was just like barely hanging on, there was a gas station and a convenience store. And I ended up, it was open late, and the people said, hey, come in, warm up, dry off, stay as long as you need. And but some really cool things that happened that day. And all along that res on the Wind River, I would see golden eagles, and then I seen a herd of buffalo, and then the wild horses that I had shared with you about. And, and it was like a herd of wild horses. And then for the people that the story, but the others that don't, there was a red and yellow, black and white horses above, on a hill above those other horses. And they were facing, starting from the left, which would have been kind of west to east. And very significant to me, to see that, and then asking you what that meant, and then what you shared with me. And then the next day I was on Fort Hall, and everything was shut down except for the convenience store and some other stuff. And so I felt like, well, I'll just sit here. I can't go meet anybody because everything's closed. And so I'll sit here, and I see a guy, and I could tell by his dress, Vietnam vet, a couple years older than me. And I said, hey, can I give you a gift? And I said, I have something for you. So he came over, I told him about the prayer journey, what I was doing. I said, I'm just here asking permission to just offer prayers here, and felt like God told me to gift you. And so he took my gifts, and as an elder, gave me permission to be there. And then he prayed over me and thanked me for coming, and told me about the suicide issues and drug, alcohol things. And then I felt like I was supposed to wait for one more person that God would put in my path. And a younger guy gets out of a pickup, and I can tell he's pretty tattooed, and he's kind of looking at me, and so God said, that's the guy. So I said, sir, I got something I'd like to give you, if that's okay. And long story short, it ended up being the tribal chairman, and had a really long, good conversation with him. And the funny part was, if I would have done it the way a lot of people do, and hey, I'm going to be on the res on such and such a day, can I meet with the chairman? Or, that would not have happened.
Yeah.
Very rarely does that happen. But over and over along these years, those things have happened. And then he called and got me permission to go talk to people that were in the suicide and drug abuse programs. When I was at Elko, you said that was a special place. I met people that are descendants of the same chiefs that you are. And I was also taken in, they weren't as closed down. And I ended up meeting really significant people, making connections with the people that are in charge of the domestic violence and drug abuse issues, and just a really good time and a real good open door. But I had met two young ladies downtown, and they were laughing at a stoplight, and I said something to them and ended up talking to them, and that's when I found out that they had the same grandparents that you and your mom and your
Uh-huh.
sister had.
Uh,
So,
my relatives.
yes.
See, Grandma, she always talked about our relatives there in Elko.
Yeah, it was a interesting to hear the stories, and I knew about Wind River and some of the other places, and where you guys had been removed from and different things. Um, and I had seen Shoshone things kind of scattered out, but what I didn't realize is that almost every town in Nevada has a Shoshone and Paiute community. Um,
Uh-huh.
you drive through the little towns. Elko's small, but not that small. But every
Uh-huh.
one of those towns has an area, and every one of them that I went through, I met somebody significant. And one was a lady walking across the street in Winnemucca, and with her son, and they were leaving school, and I felt like God said, "Go back and talk with her." And so I went back, and I'm on my motorcycle, been there all day, all wind blown, and I ride up next to her car, and I said, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And I said, "I have something for you." She's like, "Yes." And so I told her what I was doing, and she ended up telling me her whole life story, and a story of abuse, alcoholism, even having one of her brothers thrown in prison over an issue, abuse issue with
Oh.
kids. And so she was telling me how that all went and how things in her family. And she said, I had to talk to my brother. And she said, I'm sorry, but I turned you in. And then he said, no, you saved my life. And but with her, it was like she said, "You're just here at the right time." She said, "Our community needs what you're saying," and she said, "But me and my family just totally need this." But she
Mm.
opened up. I mean, just told me, like we were in a counseling session. but you know, but it makes you feel when you're doing these things not with a schedule and not. Um, like in the box of the way that people do certain things. Um,
Mhm.
I was ready to go to my hotel room, and God said, "Oh, go check out where the community, where the res is," and then leads me right to that woman that's just, you know, in need of what my prayers and everybody else's prayers, you know, and she was just getting back in relationship with a daughter that had left, and she was going to move and go help raise her grandkids and all that, and they need to hear those stories that we overcome things, the drugs, the alcohol. um, I'm praying about it and praying to see it broken because I've seen it happen. I've experienced that in my life. You share your story because you've seen it happen.
Mm.
You know, it's not something you read in a book or somebody told you that can happen. You've seen it in your own life and you see it in other people's lives.
Mhm. It's beautiful what you're doing. Thank you, Us, from my family, for those prayers, because my family really needs it. It's touching to know that there's, people out here like you that are um being selfless and going around and doing these things, because in the world we live in today, 9 to 5 and a schedule, and um that's not really the way that we, our families, our ancestors lived. And it
Right.
was, you go and you're guided by spirit, and there is no time, and you don't rush, and you get there and you arrive there when you arrive, and you're always on time when you arrive. And being guided and being able to listen to spirit and go, okay, you need to go over here, or just wait a moment. And be patient. And then, someone comes along that you share that message with, that if you weren't patient and if you weren't just living in that good way, not in tune, then you wouldn't be able to hear, okay, you need to speak with this person, I need you to share this message with this person. So it's like you're this vessel that's walking around, you know in prayer for these people and being guided. And it's beautiful to see that, especially in the times we are now. And being able to pick up like you did this summer and get on your motorcycle and go. Not, in this world today, it's challenging to be able to just pick up for the summer and go. But as us for natives, that's like kind of what we all live for, is that summer powwow trail, and or the journey, and traveling and going all over the place, and seeing our relatives and things like that. And but it's beautiful because I try to do that myself, being guided by spirit and being guided by creator to go to, different places, or sit longer and stay for this person. And there's times where I'm sitting, at work, and I, want to leave a little bit early, but something just keeps pulling me to stay. And then before you know it, a woman will come in, and I, like you said, I end up holding that space, and she ends up, they end up like pouring their problems and their lives, and things that are going on. And so then I end up offering them those prayers and that comfort in their, their trials and things in their life, and that giving them that hope like you're doing. It's beautiful to be able to be in that place.
Yeah, I've put 80,000 miles since 2011 on my motorcycle across Indian Country. And one of the most significant was I rode from San Carlos Apache to Fort Marion, Florida, where they took
Oh, wow.
Geronimo, and I went to Oklahoma because they had put a lot of spiritual leaders, medicine men, and chiefs on that train and sent them to Florida. And on that one, I went and gifted and asked permission of everybody that was held at San Carlos and the Oklahoma tribes that had been put on that train. And then when I came back, I went and gifted and asked forgiveness for what had happened. And the thing at San Carlos, especially, there was a priest or minister that was in charge of distribution of goods. And in one of the books I read, he was bragging about how he had sold everything of value, and he only gave the people that were held there the things that were rotten or of no value. And so when I came back, some people had helped us, and we had Pendleton blankets and eagle feathers and water and some jerky and coffee. And I was able to go to all the different tribes and give them those gifts. And then, just on behalf of the Christian side of things, asking forgiveness for what, not asking people to forget, and not saying get over it in a negative way, but to get over it as far as get on top of it, not let our past hinder and direct our future. And I had a really good response. I was allowed to go to senior centers, to some tribal vice chairmen, council members, different people, and then some just elders, and very well received. And people understand that historical trauma, how it gets passed on. But I also believe that we can break that. And so that's part of my motivation, is to see healing, real healing, come from those places of death.
So to get to that place, what are some things that you would advise those of us in the communities to do to be able to get to that place?
For one of the things is it's a biblical principle in a scripture. It says that we overcome Satan by what Jesus did for us, the blood of the Lamb, but we overcome by the word of our testimony. So our story, one time at one of the reservations here, we were out there for some ceremonies, and people come running up to me. It was a family I knew real well, and they said, so and so's in jail. He's a little kid, little kid, 12 years old, and both of his younger brothers, brother and sister, and I said, what happened? And they said their mom and dad got in a big fight, and they were beating each other up. Because of the ceremony, they couldn't find their grandparents, and so they just took the whole family to jail. And later, I seen that little boy, and he was just sitting there crying. And I walked over to him, and I looked at him. And being the oldest son, I'm the oldest son of three brothers, and he's the oldest at the time of three. And I looked at him, and I said, "It's not your fault. What happened? And your mom and dad's fighting is not your fault." And he just looked at me, and it was like, and then a few minutes later, he goes, "It's not." And I go, "No, it's not." But then everything I went through growing up made sense, because it was so that I would know what to say to that boy. But that was part of my testimony of, you know what, it's not your fault. Here's my story. And so I shared what I grew up under and how I felt when my mom and dad fought, and again, it wasn't a book, telling him how he should feel, or, oh, I understand. It was like, no, hey, I understand, because I sat there just like that, just like you. With the drugs and alcohol, I can tell people that you can be set free because I've been set free. I grew up, just couldn't wait to drink whiskey, because our whole family were all either addicts or abusers. And I don't remember anybody in my family that didn't drink. And so I grew up, thinking that was it. You grow up, you work hard, you drink whiskey. And then with my kids, when God delivered me and some people helped me, and I got set free from that, it broke that family curse. Not that my kids didn't do some things, but that curse was gone. And now in them and my grandkids, that curse is gone. Not that I don't expect that we might fail or, experiment, but that controlling curse of the drugs and alcohol is gone. So I can go and pray for that and share my story, because I know that it happens. I know what God can do. So for people, don't be afraid to share your stories, with what helped you, how, what you went through. There's people out there going through the same things, and they don't think there's a way out. They look at people, I look at elders or people that I know when I go somewhere, and sometimes I know their story without talking to them. But you look at them, and they're, they have a new pickup, and they're, things look good on the outside. And then when you talk to them, yeah, but 20 years ago they were on the street. 20 years ago they were in jail or in prison, but they did things that changed their life, and the Creator helped them, and there's a way out. And that's what people need to know. There is a way out, that these things are temporary.
I love that.
So that's for me, it's, look for openings, share your story, smile, be nice to somebody. Sometimes that's all it takes, is just being nice, or encouraging word. And like over Christmas and the holidays, we've had people donate to the ministry, and so I've had a whole bunch of $50 Walmart cards to give out, and I've been giving them out through the whole COVID thing, but especially since Thanksgiving to now. And I'll be walking along and feel like God says, bless them, And so because of others, I'm able to give somebody $50 or something like that. But to really see that blessing, but it could be just buying somebody a cup of coffee, or seeing somebody, a homeless person, and buying them a hamburger and a french fry and a coffee. It doesn't have to be $50. It doesn't have to be $100. But sometimes even just a muffin. I'll see somebody sitting on the sidewalk, and I'll just stop and get a muffin or something and say, hey, God told me to give you this. And it's amazing to hear the replies and see the smiles. And then later, years later, I see people that come up and go, you're that guy that helped me, or, you guys did this for me, and now we're doing really good.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be afraid to be led, And if it's something big, have people that you're accountable to, and run it by them. Get confirmation. That confirmation, and then for me, getting permission from people of the land to go, really helps not be, to be under authority. It's like it gives me authority. I don't have to worry about spiritual attacks and things like that, because I have permission to be there. If that makes sense.
Uh-huh. Yeah, because we're always taught, when you go onto someone else's land, that you're supposed to give that respect and,
Are you there?
like ask for that permission to be there.
Did I lose you?
Oh, nope, I hear you. You're right here.
Yeah.
You there? Oh, we're having technical difficulties. Oop.
One thing about for me,
there you go.
It's not like I'm some super spiritual, do everything right person, but in spite of my mistakes, I talk to God, and I expect Him to talk back, and I listen to what He has to say.
Yeah, thank you for your words. Is there any last message that you would like to leave everyone?
Connected.
Oh, are you there? Did I lose you? You there?
It still shows that we are. So.
Part of internet connections on the reservations. We need better internet connection, people. Nope, lost you.
So I'm not sure if we're still. It shows that I'm still connected, but I'm not sure if we ran out of time or what is happening.
I can hear you, but I don't think you can hear me.
I've lost my connection.
Oh no. We're just gonna end.
I'm gonna offer a prayer.
Oh, there you go.
And an encouragement, I hope.
Yes.
Father, I just ask right now for everyone that can hear my voice through this connection that we have, that you would encourage them that they are of great value, that none of us were a mistake. Father, you created each of us, and you gifted each of us in our own way. And the value that you give us is for the world as a whole, that if one of us is missing, part is missing, part of that whole piece. Father, I pray that you show people that you care about them specifically, and that not just in a generic, oh, God loves you, but show them in a special way, touch them in a way that you have with me and other people that I know, that you've really showed, because it was the personal things that you did for us and the things that you've brought us through. And anybody that comes from a family of drug abuse, alcoholism, violence, domestic violence, abuse, those things, that there's a way out, and it can be broken in your own life, and it can be broken in your family. Father, guide and direct and bless these people, and also bring your healing and restoration to their families, their communities, their tribes, their villages. And we just ask for your help. Help us with the things that we struggle with. And I pray for life and health for the people that I know that are struggling with major issues, Lord, in the physical realm. We ask for your help and healing. And I just thank you, Father. Thank you for this time to share what you've done for me and what you'll do for others, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
And I don't know.
Oos.
Still shows.
Thank you. I don't know if you can hear me, but I can hear you and I can see you.
I think I lost you.
All right, everyone. We're gonna finish right there. And thank you again for everyone for joining us today and being a part of this journey. It's been a touching one for me to be able to be a part of this and witness what Bill's been doing for many people across the country. Thank you. I'm really touched right now. I just feel for all the people out there and my families. I'm a survivor from addiction, drugs and alcohol. I've been clean for going on 11 years now. And so it's, I know the power of this, and I've too, my family, we've been working on cutting generational traumas and these cords and these curses that's been placed on us for generations. And it's not easy. It's not easy. But I will have to say, you guys, that one thing that um that I've really had to learn, and it's not just with generational trauma, it's just with trauma period, is learning to forgive, but it doesn't mean forget. And I had to learn this. My mom always told me, you have to, Rachel, you have to forgive. And I was like, but they've done many wrong things, and they've never apologized, and they'll never apologize. So how can I forgive them when they're never going to apologize? And she would just say, you just have to find it in your heart to forgive and surrender that pain to Creator, so that you don't have to live in that pain and suffering. And the first time I really had to do that was when forgiving the boys that raped me in 8th grade, and having to forgive those 3. And I think it was one day a couple years ago, maybe like 4 years ago now, I was leaving the store and I ran into um, one of the boys that raped me in 8th grade, and I hadn't seen him since high school. And I seen his wife go by, and then I knew that he was going to be around the corner, and I was embracing myself to like go in a fist fight. But as I went around the corner, I looked over and he was standing there with his 2 daughters in his hand. And I just kind of looked at him, and he didn't see me. He was looking down at them. And I just remember just kind of understanding there to forgive, and that I started praying for those, those little girls, that they weren't going to have to one day go through that trauma and that their father, did to me. And I prayed for them that they may not have to go through that rape themselves or things like that. And then I started realizing that if I could forgive, then maybe this pain would go away that I was holding on to, that was literally eating me up and giving me cancer. And so I had to come to terms with myself that I can forgive, but it doesn't mean that it was okay. It doesn't mean that I'm going to forget. But um, when you can forgive, it allows you to let go of this pain and this like anger we hold on to for that hurt that's been put on us. And then we can start to love in a different way and love ourselves. And then also forgive ourselves, because sometimes we punish ourselves for things that we allow to happen or we go through, and we realize later that we allowed that to happen and we didn't, put a stop to it. But it's also part of our lessons. It's part of our trials that make us human and help us to have that knowledge and understanding on a higher level. And so I just, I challenge you guys to um, work on that forgiveness. And even though sometimes you feel like it's not worth being forgiven, um, try to find it in your heart to forgive for yourself, for your own peace of mind, and to surrender that pain to Creator and trust that that person that did the wrongdoing will answer one day or another. No one gets away with what they do when they don't make things right. Um, if they don't answer that for that, here on this earth, they're going to answer on the next, when they come to face with Creator and that judgment day. Um, they're going to be faced with that. And so that's one thing that really helps me when things happen and go wrong, or wrongdoings, or people act a certain way, is just uh, forgiving them and seeing that bigger picture and surrendering that to Creators, so that we don't have to carry those pains and those emotions and those traumas that can fester and cause health issues and things like that. We don't want to do that. I've done that, and I've had cancer 4 times throughout my life, due to holding on to trauma, and not talking about it and suppressing it in ways. So thank you, everyone, for being on today. Uh, we have more coming up this week, and going into the new year, we're going to be talking more about um, different ways of prayer, and living that prayer life in your life every day as we go into the new year, and being able to um, live in a happier way, in a sense, even though there's chaos and things going around us in the world. You can still find that happy place to live in, and it can be beautiful. A lot of people this last year are like, 2020 has been hell and things like that. But at the same time, yeah, it has been. But I also see so much beauty in 2020 that has happened, and so much growth that has happened, and awakening on a global scale. And to me, that's beautiful. And there's a shift that's happening, and I've been waiting for this shift to happen for years. And so for me, it's been beautiful to witness what's going on, and people finding their voices. So share your voice, share your story, You never know who you're going to impact with your story and help someone, and you can help save someone's life with your story. And don't be afraid. It's okay to be vulnerable and transparent, and we need more of that in this world if we're going to really do a massive healing and shift as a collective. So, Oos, thank you. I hope you all have a beautiful day today and the rest of this week. And stay tuned for Tuesday, 11 o'clock in Pacific time. We'll have another podcast that we'll be doing. Have a Sundance, one of my Sundance brothers will be coming on, his Lakota. So I'm excited to have him come on and talk about the things that he's doing as a warrior in today's world. So have a blessed day, everyone.